Welcome to the Brahma Kumaris, where a new world is opened up for you. From humble beginnings in India in 1936 to a global organization with over 8,000 centers in 110 countries and 1 million students worldwide. Through their tireless commitment, passionate heart, and determined spirit, the Brahma Kumaris arrived in America in 1974 and have since grown to 35 main centers throughout America. There are also 2 residential retreat centers, Peace Village, located in upstate New York, and Anubhuti, located in Novato, California.
I want to just share a little bit about how the centers of Raj Yoga meditation began in United States. Actually, I was in Caribbean islands and I got invitation from New York that we want to start something about meditation. And it was in 1978 I came here and we rented a very small apartment in Astoria. And from there I found that a lot of people have interest. I realized that there is so much need, and from there onwards then centers started in many other states.
Our centers are safe spaces where you can explore the power of your inner world.
The classes are conducted in many homes, many cities all over across the United States. A lot of people, they learn meditation, they use it, that meditation, at their workplace, in their family. And also I find that children, young adults, because they are so much into what really is the life about.
The Brahma Kumaris are dedicated to personal and global transformation through the study and spiritual practice of Raj Yoga meditation. And at the heart of our teaching is the belief that the pathway to peace and happiness is to remember our original nature as spiritual beings, connected to the One Source. In 1981, the organization received recognition as an international non-governmental organization affiliated with the United Nations and accredited with general consultative status with the Economic and Social Council. From organizing large-scale global initiatives to local community programs, the Brahma Kumaris has a tradition of service in every field that fosters spiritual growth among individuals from all backgrounds, cultures, and walks of life.
I hold on to this vision, the world of love, world of peace and harmony, world which is free from conflict and sorrow, where we can live as brothers, one family, children of common parents, one supreme divine power.
This is your invitation to awaken and join us in creating a world of love, peace, and kindness. Om Shanti. Who am I? To think and to believe that I'm divine. Powerful, beautiful, and an offspring of the divine. I am the image and likeness of the divine. And so who am I to speak clearly to who I really am? I am spirit. I am soul. And I use this physical form. I am the being of light, here to fulfill love that's unlimited. Om Shanti, everyone, and good evening. Can I tell you, every time I see that video of the Atlantic Ocean, I just want to be there. You know, I captured that video when I used to go to Miami quite regularly. And I'll tell you, maybe the only thing I'm missing right now is just sitting at the shore. Just sitting at the shore. But I hope you like that track. Ricky Cage and I are working on a new album, so that's going to be coming out in mid-June. So look forward to our new meditation fusion. How are you? You okay? Are you hanging in there? I was told that pretty much some of the cities or some of the states are planning to open up. So do you have any idea of how you're going to feel when it opens up and how you're going to come out? What's the first thing you think you're going to do apart from going to the hairdresser or the nail salon? But apart from that, how do you think you're going to feel when you have to walk out and wear a mask and still wear a glove? Has anything changed in you at all in the last month and a half or two? Have you been safe, comforted, taking care of your mind, keeping it in check? It's one of the most important things that you can do for yourself right now. You've got to stay strong because we don't really know how the unfolding of post-corona is going to be. And you all know by now that the reason why I started to hold the spiritual vaccines is so that we can be strong enough for each other, that we can hold each other up, keep each other going. There's a particular sector in our society that I have a lot of concern about. It's the area of domestic violence. The numbers have gone up increasingly. There are certain women and children that are in particular situations that are quite uncomfortable, and they're unaware or unsure what's going to become of them. So today's segment is a special one. If you have a friend who you know might be abused, or a child who might be in a threatening or an abusive situation, can I give you 30 seconds to reach out to them and ask them to come on to this conversation and catch it? I think it'll be useful. If you happen to be someone who's in a situation where you are afraid and you feel threatened, I sure hope our conversation tonight will give you some courage, will give you inspiration, and will give you answers. First and foremost, I'm so sorry that you're going through that. No one should ever go through any form of trauma, abuse, or to be dishonored in any way possible. But we are in a world right now where the consciousness of certain children of God has become closed, and they're unaware of who they are, and they become deeply separated from their value, their worth, and their dignity. You and I might never be able to find the answer as to why we sometimes make a choice that gives sorrow to another person. We can say that it's because we are in sorrow. It's natural for us to give sorrow to someone. But still, nonetheless, why do we give sorrow or impose sorrow on the life of another child of God? I'm hoping that one day we'll come to some foregone conclusion where we recognize that when we do the work internally, it will be very hard for us to give sorrow to another person. Because once you've taken care of the issues that you're still not certain of inside of yourself, it will be hard for you to want to impose any suffering and pain on anyone else. So feel free, get your pen, your paper, maybe even a tissue or two. Sit with your friends, your family, call a friend or a family member, and just be with us today. The two ladies that I'm about to bring on are two powerhouse, and I'd like to take this time to introduce both of you. So I'm going to put on my glasses and give it due justice so I don't miss anything. Today, I am honored to welcome to you, to our spiritual vaccine, two powerhouse women, Piper Dellums and Angelia Dunbar. Let me tell you a little bit about these two fierceful, powerful, dignified women. Piper Dellums is the daughter of the late Ron Dellums, former U.S. Congressman and Oakland mayor. She is also a powerful inspirational speaker, host, advocate, author, survivor in drama arts and writing therapist. She is also a filmmaker. She speaks at social and political activist conferences and events, women's prisons, women's rights, empowerment. She speaks at churches, synagogues, schools, and human rights, all of it to empower people's lives. She is also the CEO of Piper Dellums Productions and the 2019 recipient in keynote of the Survivors Ball Woman of the Year Award and the 2018 Inspirique Circle of Light. She's a recipient of even the Oprah Winfrey, the Inspirique Circle of Light recipient with Oprah Winfrey for her dedication to victims and women's rights international advocacy work. Now that was Piper Dellums. Now let's go to Angelia Dunbar. She's a corporate executive, real estate developer, a community activist, survivor, and author of Slaying with My Broken Pieces. Powerful book. I should have brought it out here, Angelia. I was actually looking at it just a few days ago. She's very active in her church and is known as a woman of strength, compassion, integrity, excellence. She's dedicated her whole life in helping others. She's committed, and her commitment is to giving was ignited following a number of hard-hitting moments in her own life. Angelia made a full recovery from domestic violence and breast cancer in her later life, which profoundly strengthened her outlook on life, committed to now sharing her story with others and inspiring them to reach their highest potential. Angelia and Piper are living their lives of purpose. They also have very strong fathers, and we're going to talk about their journey in this conversation and welcome them with our open arms here on the Meditation Museum Spiritual Vaccine. Ladies, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Om Shanti. Can you all hear me? Can you all hear me? All right. Just waiting to hear all of you guys to come on. Okay, ready to unmute you? Okay, can you unmute Angelia? Okay, great. Welcome, guys. Yes, of course.
Yes.
Om Shanti.
Hello, ladies.
I,
Om Shanti.
I hope I did justice, because even when I read the bios of folks, there's so much more behind that, because I'm not able to articulate the heart, the power, the beat of your life, but hopefully in this conversation and heart to heart, we will do that. How are you guys doing with lockdown or rise up? That's what I call it, lockdown, rise up.
I'm finding this to be one of the most beautiful times in my life, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I have experienced what I would call seasons of transformation. And those seasons are very layered like an onion. So initially, of course, it's almost like childbirth, and you go through this transition of your body. and you have to get used to the physical changes, to the norm no longer being normal. So there's some growing pains that came with that at the beginning. So I went from being terrified and anxious and overeating and gaining weight and looking crazy to suddenly being extraordinarily productive. Oh, I'm going to plant a giant garden, paint the house. You know, I'm going to do everything I can possibly do. And I went from that to calming down and becoming very intentional, very prayerful, very connected to the universal vibration of the world, to the heartbeat of the world. And that has been probably the most extraordinary transformation from the inside out. And healing self on a deep, deep, deep level. I mean, ancient wounds are being healed. My relationship is actually cleaving.
Are those your little puppies?
I'm so very sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I get it. No, look, this is a time where, listen, Piper, this is a time where everything is natural. No one has to be so much set up now anymore. It's just we're doing our best. But Angelia,
yes, I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. Put it on mute. Angelia, tell me about you. How are you coping with the lockdown and the rise up?
I'm basically finding my inner self. And that's the portion of me that I lost along the way, always ripping and running in the fast lane of life. Trying to make sure I got from A to Z as fast as possible in what I thought was being successful. But in the midst of that journey and running, I forgot to stop, meditate, think about God as much as I needed to. And so now when you're down and you can't do anything else, you realize you're alone, but you're not alone from an aspect that you have God there to talk to. And that's what we need right now.
It almost feels like the longer we stay in our lockdown, there's a different level of silence that starts to come over us.
Yes.
Right? Like
I love that
one too.
Yeah, like a different level of comfort. Don't worry, Piper, we're going to love your dogs up. It's all right.
Sorry.
No, it's all right.
I'm so sorry.
So, ladies, we're talking about a very sensitive topic today. I have a lot of concern for some of our sisters who might be in homes where there's the consistent threat of perhaps violence upon her, especially, or even a child. And I would like us to perhaps hear your personal story about, you know, what was it? I mean, you've been through certain stages of maybe trauma or violence. And I would love for our viewers to kind of get a little bit of a taste of what that was like for you. And what was it that, you know, helped you to somehow endure it during the process? Angelia, you want to start first, and then Piper can take care of her pups while she puts me on mute?
Okay,
Angelia?
So when I was going through my trauma, I tell people every woman doesn't go through abuse on a regular basis. And it's not something they've stayed in. For me, it was the exiting part that I even started in doing the abuse. And I knew then that in order to come out, I had to want to come out. And I had to fight my way out and find that place in my heart that I knew if I made that decision to leave, I would still be okay. In the midst of everything else, you know, when they take away everything from you, such as what you feel is your power.
Yeah.
But the trauma was something that was traumatic, but it's also a portion of me that I find to be healing, because once I took back my power by stating I will no longer stay as a victim, I will talk and overcome as a victor, then they no longer had control over me. But until that moment I decided I wanted to be a victor is when I realized that the power lied within me to overcome the trauma.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me, there's something that we didn't cover on our radio show before. Did you ever see red flags before you got married to your husband? Yeah, let's talk about that. The red flags that basically come up. And what did you think and what did you do maybe when you saw the red flags before the marriage and started to endure the violence?
So in my book, Slaying with My Broken Pieces, I have a chapter strictly on the red flags. And the red flags for me was I was young, so when I talk to people, it's pretty much teens, because I grew up having the fairy tale life and image from watching TV. And that's where you want everything perfect. You wanted the biggest of everything. And so TV really played a part into what we thought marriage was, outside of our household. But in my household, I saw it. But my first red flag was the anger. And so the anger was never towards me, it was towards other people.
Wow.
And then I remember specifically being at a party, and he had a group of guys come up around me anytime a male talked to me. So again, I tell people I'm a little country girl from Conway, Arkansas. So at this party, I'm sitting there, and this guy walks up to talk to me. And next thing I know, I have 10 to 20 guys surrounding me. And they're like, hey, you okay? Is this guy bothering you? I was like, oh, no. But, again, TV, I'm like, I have my own personal paparazzi. Well, that's the young, 20 years old, 22, 20, well, 23, 24 years old. That's the young attitude I had because I did not realize that that was the first sign of control, meaning no one
Wow.
can come to you unless I give them that authority.
Wow.
And so you have to ignore that. When they start drinking excessively and coming home with no money in their pockets and pocket full of rubbers, that's signs of affairs and, other abuses coming with that.
Yeah.
So it
Because
wasn't the physical that I felt first.
it was yeah, because it's interesting. I think a lot of women need to be educated on being very acute to the red flags. Because if they're not, they might end up in a situation where they feel very trapped and they get angry and disappointed with themselves because they knew better.
Definitely.
Piper, did you feel that way when you got into your marriage? Was there anything of that nature where you were concerned?
No, I did not go through physical abuse in any way. I actually married an extraordinary man that reminded me a great deal of my father, in that he was very well educated, very poised, very sophisticated, well traveled, well versed. He was an incredible husband. He was my best friend. So there were no red flags. We were university students and graduate students together, very strong parents and close to each other's parents. So the unfolding and the transformation, the subtleties exposed themselves over the years and exposed themselves in ways that I believe were probably also an expose for him. I think that there are subtleties in the human condition, the things that we learn to hide from ourselves and from our population, our friends, our families, that will show themselves up a little later in life when the pressures of real adulthood, like parenting, come into play. Things that you can no longer hide when you're under a roof. Those things could be infidelities or sexual perversions or other aspects of addictions that creep in. So in my marriage, it was more about how to continue to mask that which was being unveiled. And in our society, it is easy to mask the subtleties of abuse by utilizing financial abuses, if you're wealthy,
Yes, yes.
in order to hide what you're doing from the world and to keep your spouse under your thumb. So the black and blue of the bruises that were laid upon me didn't come from fists,
But
or
it was
kicking,
emotional and
or any
financial.
It was emotional and financial down to the depth of my core. Because it wasn't a taking away of my physical safety, it was a taking away of the only thing that I was living and breathing for, which was my children. So once you strip someone of their purpose in life, you strip someone of their very breath of life.
Yes.
So what was taken from me was the will to live, the will to continue, all compassion. I was still nursing my 3-year-old when my 3-year-old and 5-year-old were taken. And they were taken for years. So you're really being subjected to a torture that is lasting day in and day out, 365 days of the year for an 8-year period. There is no end to the trauma, because you know that which was birthed from within you, everything that you're living and dying for, is somewhere out there in the world, and you can't get to them.
And that's a different kind of abuse too, isn't it?
It's a torturous abuse, especially when there were questions of sexual misconduct.
Sure.
And without having real answers, because if you have enough money to not go through a legal process, if someone has enough money for a DA to drop all charges because they're extraordinarily wealthy, then you have that question as well. What is happening to them day in and day out? So you don't sleep again. There is no slumber for the soul and womb of a mother who's thinking their daughters are being abused, and you can't get to them and you can do nothing. So it's a crippling that I was literally crucified and broken at the very heart of my being.
I want to jump in here because I think that a lot of us tend to look at abuse as a physical format, but there's the financial abuse of funding being held back. There's the emotional abuse that we have to take into consideration. And then there's the abuse of sometimes a parent using a child against the well-being of another parent. So it comes in different layers, and I think it's important that we're able to identify them so that we can find some clarity and maybe the best approach in solving our predicaments. Now, the both of you come from very, very strong dads. Now, in what way did your fathers influence you? Because in your journeys, you've bumped into men who were nothing like, in a way, your father. Maybe to some extent, as you said, Piper, there was a nobility or, a sort of a cultural richness about your ex-husband. But your father would never do something like that, I don't think, to his wife.
Ever.
So you came from strong fathers. Didn't your experience with your fathers come up in your mind when you were married and you thought to yourself, this is not what I deserve. This isn't the way I saw my father treat my mother. Angelia, you want to touch on that a little?
Yeah, definitely. I knew that what I was encountering was not my past, because my future was based on my foundation of spirituality with my parents. They gave me the strongest upbringing in church, and my father showed people nothing but love and compassion. So, but again, I tell people that for me, the abuse started when I was preparing to leave because of all the red flags that I started seeing. And I said, my dad didn't do this. My grandfather didn't do this. My uncles don't do this. And so I just had to realize that my dad showed me that I can get out of it. He showed me that I'm greater than that, because my heavenly father told me I was royalty. My earthly father told me I was royalty and treated me as such. So when I marry a man, I expect the same, because that's what I'm accustomed to, royalty. And it's not so much royalty as financially being wealthy. It's royalty in knowing my worth.
Yes.
And that can't no one take away who I really am unless I give them that power. And I choose not to. So I had to just fight hard, because my dad laid the right foundation. And I had to choose to say, okay, am I going to go with what I've been raised on? Or am I going to start a new normal that I don't want to be normal?
No, lovely. Thank you, Angelia. Piper?
That is a beautifully layered question. My father, as you know, was my hero. My father was my hero in the midst of this crisis as well, in a very different way. Now, initially, the reason that it wasn't about whether or not I could go to my father with what was happening. I did go to my father with what was happening. It was about when I went and what I was willing to share. That being said, it wasn't as if he was unavailable emotionally at all. My father is very available for me. But because he was elected when I was so young in life, I took it upon myself to have a belief system that my personal problems were not as important as the universal problems of the nations. So when I knew that my father was walking in and out of doors of apartheid and Cuban Missile Crisis and Grenada having a one-day government and racism and poverty and incarceration and women's rights and environmental rights and gay rights, and he was liberating nations. It was such a huge mantle that I spoke to myself. I told myself, he's so important and doing such important work. I'm not going to tell him and bother him with this grandiose destiny, with issues of infidelity, or I'm feeling suicidal, or I think my daughter's being sexually abused. I had learned very early on to hold my problems in the palm of my own hand, not knowing that I did not have the strength not to be crippled or burdened by the weight of that community and family and parenting. My own father was what I needed the most.
Right.
By the time I went to my father, the children were already gone. See, there was no preparation for me. It wasn't as if I knew, oh, this man is getting angry, he's hit me for the millionth time. None of that was occurring. I took all of the right stands. My father got me the best attorneys, but after 1 year of spending everything that we had, that my father and mother had, which could not at all compare to hundreds of millions of dollars coming from the other end, we had never even made it to court. So after all of the money was spent, the DA said all charges dropped, the children are too young to testify, too much time had gone by, and we didn't get the memo. So it was simply a day of my thinking I had done everything right, moving away with the children, thinking life was going to move on and justice was going to be served. But I woke up one day on St. Patrick's Day and baked 64 green cupcakes, walked my children to school 4 doors down in one of the finest communities in the United States, read them the giving tree, kissed them, and said, "I'll see you in 3 hours." Came back to the playground
And you never
and
saw them
didn't see them
again?
again. That's correct. So there was no planning, no strategy. My father was the first one there to fight with me in that search. But what happened for me was a different. No one could help me at that point, really, because I had a breakdown, and it was such a severe and extraordinary breakdown of body, mind, spirit, and soul that I had to find my way to faith so that I could gather back up the will to live, the will to ask for help, and the will to keep fighting.
And I
But
want
he
to
did
pause
find
here.
me. Mm.
I want to pause here because a lot of us have the conditioning, Piper and Angelia, that domestic violence just happens inside of the house. But I don't think that we've actually started to even explore when it goes outside of the house in areas where, for example, a father will take a child. That's a different form of deep emotional violence, which, of course,
Torturous.
yeah, it's torturous. It's torturous. So let's just say that no one should really go through this. And you and I both know right now that the shelters are packing up like never before. What I thought was an American issue, I came to find out that it's actually a global it's a global issue with shelters being filled with women and children who are trapped in houses that have become a horrible nightmare. Could you speak about that? In what way can, women get help nowadays who might be in a situation that it's so scary during this particular pandemic? How best can they help themselves, Piper and Angelia?
Mm. I think, like Angelia said, women have to look for the signs. One of the most difficult signs is when women are trying to protect their own children, protecting themselves and protecting their children, knowing, one, that the children could be abducted, two, what if the children are being sexually abused in the home? These were the issues that were happening under my nose. The resources, the best resources, is to ensure that there are contact points, whether it's pharmacies, doctors, a neighbor, being able to trust in someone, anyone, to have a plan of action for the just in case, to keep yourself calm and not agitating your abuser when you have that plan of escape, to have money put aside, and like what Angelia, when she tells her story, to stay courageous enough to keep the faith, because you will be walking through fires that are blazing probably higher than you ever expected on every different level. We as a community have to come together as women, as a society, to make sure that there are places where women can go, where they're safe, where they're protected, where they're hidden. There are many of those places available, and during this pandemic, the information is getting out there with more fluidity.
Great.
So as long as we share that information one to another, to keep our ears, hearts, doors, windows, and phones and wallets open to our sisters all over the world to ensure that they have an escape.
Beautiful. Angelia, why do you think that many women don't speak up when they're being hurt in their homes by their spouses? What makes them stay quiet with the violence and endure what they endure quietly? What do you think is going on? And did you do that for a period of time?
Well, I didn't I didn't stay silent during the violence. I stayed silent during the red flags. And that's because a lot of times when it's just a red flag, we're told to cover it up. It's nothing. The men have told you so much, you're just making up things. But the red flags really turn into be a blowout, like the tire, so it's like the tire. You see the tire has the metal coming through it, but you're being told it's okay to drive to the next destination. You're going to be safe. That's the red flag. But when you're going down that freeway to high speed and then all of a sudden you have a blowout, you look back and like, man, I missed the tire pressure being low, which was him being angry. I missed a knot in the tire, which was him acting like he was going to hit you, but he didn't hit you. I missed the speed that he was going at, because he could go from being nice to angry in a matter of seconds. And a lot of times people don't talk about it because they're afraid to be seen in public as a failure.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we're not a failure. We're just a person who's trying to work through our emotions, but also make sure that when we walk away, we can say, I gave it my all. I tell people, just don't let it be at the expense of your life, because it's not worth it.
Well, you encountered quite of a tragic experience in the house. I think on the day that you were leaving or something. Could you share with our viewers, because The reason why I'd like all of you to hear and her story was because the faith that she executed at a time that was extremely crucial in her life not only proved to be her life savior, but it also shifted her husband's mentality. And I think it's a very profound story. Angelia, could you share that a little, please?
Yes, ma'am. I remember on what it started February the 13th. My husband, or ex-husband now, but my husband at that time didn't come home that night. But that's after we've gone through so many things, except for the actual physical abuse. So he just kept doing things, and I knew he was cheating, having affairs. I knew he had the potential of hurting me. My son has said many times, "Don't hurt me and my mom." My son was just 2, 3 years old at the time. So this particular night on February the 14th, I made up in my mind I wasn't coming home. And he came home that morning, threw me a box of assorted chocolates, and I was like, I'm going to pack my bags and I'm going to leave. Well, in the midst of me trying to leave, because I thought he was at work, he was actually waiting on me. And so when I pulled back up, he yanked me out the car, took me in the house, and he told me, "I've called and reported you missing to the police. I've called your parents in Arkansas, told them you were missing."
Wow.
And he was preparing to kill me. And he was a chef, so he took this butcher knife and he placed it in his hand, in my hand, which is, I was 5'5", like 120. He was 6'3", 300 pounds. And he started stabbing himself in his chest. And he's like, "If I can't have you, no one can." But he was trying to make me stab him in the heart and kill him.
Wow.
And immediately I started thinking of my foundation in the faith of God and the words I've heard preached in the sermons I've read, the word of God I read. And I started saying, "Father, forgive him, for he know not what he do." I knew that no matter what he did, I didn't want to be the one to kill him. Plus, I'm reported missing, so he's setting up what's going to happen. And in the midst of that, I started saying, "Don't let the blood of this man be on my hands." And I just kept praying out loud. The rest of the words I honestly don't know. But in the midst of that, the knife fell from our hand, and our hand is still in his heart with, depression. And again, he's 6'3", 300 pounds. And he fell to his knees, and he started crying and yelling, telling me, "Stop, stop, stop praying."
Wow.
I didn't know what to do at that moment. Do I run for safety or what? Or do I keep praying? Because I too was amazed at how quick God answered my prayer.
Wow.
But I know that God can turn the situation around. I know he doesn't save us if we have that faith to believe it.
Yes.
And I know his word does not return void. And I prayed it out to him, and God showed me that I have you covered just like I always have.
Beautiful story. Such a woman of faith. But Piper, you also had a lady of faith come and rescue you at a time when you were at your lowest. Tell us about that story.
Yes, as Angelia was just talking, I was reminded of how many times God stepped in, the Spirit of God, Spirit of the Lord stepped in. That same day, I remember I had written a suicide letter. I had left what was a $5 million home. I was basically almost living on the street. And I was living in and out of what would be a motel where prostitution was going on. And I was inside of this little motel room, sleeping on a shower floor with my dog. I wrote the suicide letter. I drank I don't know how many bottles of alcohol. I was only 29 years old. I had 2 children. I had been married since I was 23. I was very young at the time. I filled up 2 giant bowls of kibble and water, and I left the motel door unlocked. I lit a candle. I said a drunken prayer. And as I was trying to go to lay on the bed, I passed out. The blanket pulled. I slipped and I cracked my skull open on the side of a splintered table. The candle fell and caught fire to the bed. That's when I went unconscious. I woke up 3 days later. Half of that motel room was burned, but my dog's water bowls had put the water out. My dog was laying at my side, licking my face. It was 3 days later. I remember looking back now going, wow, Jesus rose from the dead after 3 days, and so did I. But I resurrected covered in blood and vomit and urine. I was 98 pounds. I was a skeleton. I did not want to wake up to see another day because it was year 5 without my children.
Wow.
And I stumbled barefoot out of the door of that motel, covered in blood, with a cracked skull, covered in everything that was on me. And I walked barefoot up to a liquor store. I was so disgusting and filthy that the proprietor did not want me to come in. And as I was reaching for the door, hair wild, thoughts wild, completely incohesive, I hear a voice say, "Piper, is that you?" I hadn't heard my name in so long that it shuddered me. And I remember turning around, and there was a beautiful blonde woman, pearls, very elegant, upscale, hand on my shoulder. And it took a moment for me to recognize that she was one of the mothers on the playground whose children were at the same preschool. And I remember turning around and I almost wanted to push her away because she was forcing me to remember that which I thought that I could run away from.
Sure.
She said my name again. I said, go away, go away. And she said, oh my God, she whispered, you never found your children, did you? I got my bottle of booze and I stumbled my way back to that motel, and she followed behind me. She followed me to that disgusting place. I went into the room, continued to drink, hoping that this could be the final end. She came in that room, found my hotel key. She was bathing me, feeding me, praying over me, cleaning up. For probably a month while I was unconscious, I would wake up and she would have me carried in a shower, 3 and 4 women from her church praying over me. It got to the point where I was so disturbed because she was forcing me to live that I said, don't you dare come back here. If you come back one more time, I will take my own life. She said, I won't come back, but you have to make a promise. I said, what is that? She said, you'll come to church with me. And I was not a churchgoer. And so I thought, there's no way. I'm a 98-pound anorexic, suicidal drunk at 29 years old with more degrees than a thermometer in my father's congressional district. I am not going out into a public place. My plan is 6 feet under. But I went because I was still a woman of my word. And stepping into that door, if it weren't for she and all of the women she had spoken to me about, who surrounded me and prayed me into a restoration of not just spirit, but life, I would not be here today.
Powerful
One stranger,
story.
one woman who dedicated a month of her life to saving a woman who didn't want to save herself, who had awakened from death on a floor because the Spirit of God knew that I had a destiny and a legacy and a purpose, as Angelia did. So God wasn't going to let us die. He wasn't going to leave Angelia blind in a warehouse, or leave me dead on the floor, or my children sexually abused for the rest of their lives.
Powerful stories, Piper and Angelia, because I think that one of the things we are learning with this pandemic as well, and the COVID, is to perhaps deepen our connection to God in whatever way you decide to pray. But I feel that this isolation, this solitude, this quietude, this gardening, this reflecting, writing is taking us to that reconnection to the divine, to the supreme, because inside of every living being is a desire to live a completely fulfilled life. And if for whatever reason we find ourselves in a relationship that's blocking me from the full potential, then it really requires faith for me to get out of that energetic field that has me in that particular place. Now, a lot of us talk about women or children being abused. You know, is there anything that can help the men? Because it just seems like you'll call the police will see it, the wife or the partner will decide, do they press charges or not? He goes to prison 2-3 days, then he comes out. He could be more angry than he was when he went in. But is there any emotional support from men who would beat a woman who is the mother of his child, or beat her to such an extent he can't even recognize her, and still wake up 2-3 days later and say, I love you? There is something mentally, emotionally, spiritually off. Is there a support system for men in that condition?
Not that I'm aware of. And I really think that men have to want to get the help, even if it's not out there. Go to your pastor, go to a church. Even if you're not a Christian, go to a church, go to men who are positive and seek that help. Because you're right, so many men will beat you and they'll look at you and say, oh, but you caused it. You know, you made me do that. I didn't want to do that. No one makes you hurt them. You're supposed to love them because love conquers all, but men have to want to stop. And women have to stop abusing men as well. But too many times, you know, we just go through things and we're trying to realize, how do we overcome it? Because he said he loved me. Did I deserve it? What did I do? Quit questioning yourself for someone else's pain that they're causing me. And before we were talking and Piper was talking, I was reflecting on Isaiah 43:2. And it says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. We have to know that no matter what we go through, God is with us. We're going to come out of it. He's not going to leave us in that situation if we make the decision to leave, because too many times we stay someone we say we don't want to be because we're afraid to go, and we have to go carefully.
Why do some women stay in violent situations, Angelia?
Financially, I teach finance classes at my church. I'm in finance and real estate, but people don't know how to plan and prepare properly to leave. It's one thing to tell a victim, hey, just get out of that situation. Okay, I listen to you, but because you're not in it, so I'm listening, but when I leave, where do I go? I don't have any
Right.
money. He has a checkbook, he has a debit card, he has a minimum amount. I know from honoring survivors where they've left and they get to the bank, the account's been taken off, their name's been taken off the account. They've closed it out. The debit card has been changed. So if I leave, how do I survive? I
Yeah.
never stashed any money away. I go to my friend's house, but they're not aware that I'm in this bad of a situation. So now I'm putting them and their family and kids in jeopardy because of the fact they don't know that he's coming looking for me, and they have to protect themselves too. So we don't leave. We say, okay, I just got to figure it out. But there's no figuring out if you don't have the right help and the right system and structure in place to walk out that door and know you're going to make it.
Yeah.
Because mentally, it starts there first. Mentally, I got to know I
Right.
can make it if I leave.
Piper?
Right. I wanted to touch on, thank you so much, Angelia, not just for sharing your extraordinary story, and for your insight. And thank you, Dr. Jenna, because you're showing two sides, the two polar sides of the battery of women. We're seeing it with the environment, the great mother. When we see how the great mother is treated, we're not so shocked that we're also being raped and poisoned of mind and of body. But when it comes to the men, how do we help the men? I think we have to recognize that there are many layers to the human construct, many layers to the human experience. This isn't a one-stop shop. For how boys become these types of men. We're dealing with areas of addiction. We're dealing with areas of silent sexual trauma, physical abuse, the inability to share emotion, probably some aspects of pathology, their environment. There are so many different ingredients that go into this bowl of what could make a man an abusive man, whether it's emotionally, physically, sexually, or any other capacity. We know that it goes beyond race and gender, it goes beyond faith, it goes beyond economic status. There is also there is a language, almost like a seed, a language of masculinity that is spoken into men all around the world. We're talking about, genital mutilation and child brides and Sharia law and no equal rights in terms of funding a woman in the workplace. We have been sort of putting our foot on women universally for a very long time, and it's still continuing. We're still in a fight to ask to consider a woman to have the freedom to decide what happens to her own body.
Yeah.
So what we know is that finally, we're having these conversations. I think the best way for us to wake up these men is to wake ourselves up first. We have not yet been awakened to our own strengths and capacities. We have not yet unified. This is the first time in history that women of every race, gender, from every walk of life, in every country and continent, we are coming together universally as women to speak up for ourselves. We are fighting for ourselves as women. Before it was Black women, in a group, and Indian women in a group, and white women in a group. But we're coming together. You can't silence Eve once she roared. Once Eve is awakened and she's roaring, you won't be able to silence her anymore.
Good.
So getting to that place, and if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. And it starts young. It's going to start with us mothering our boys, and mothering our boys not by putting gender models on them, saying you can't share your emotions, you must be strong. This is what a man or looks like. This is what a man. We have to talk to our children. We have to come together as husband and wife. This COVID-19 pandemic is for the first time allowing fathers and mothers to raise their children, educate their children, be with their children, hear, see, and get to know their children day in and day out for a long period of time. We've never had that before.
At least not for a long time. Not for a long time.
Daddies didn't get off for vacation. If they did, they didn't want to be stuck with us. They were going to go golf or walk or do. But now families are forced to be together. So we're hoping on the other side, where it's not an abusive situation, that this new generation of young boys going through this are hearing and being loved to a point where maybe the dialogue will change.
So
You
let
have
me,
to pray that it changes.
it will change, it will change. And I think until we start to see each other as souls and recognize the soul comes from God, and really, and I think this is such an important education, ladies, for us to train our young men and young women to not be so trapped in their gender, but to be trapped in their virtuosity. That
That's right.
when you really look at a person from the spirit, from the soul level, you see right at their core. And you develop a relationship based on that. And I think that is something maybe our generation, many generations have missed. But I think that this particular period that we're in, it's such a huge confluence of the dark night of the whole of humanity to the golden age of humanity. One of the things I'd like to ask both of you now, as you look back in your life, what have you learned the most spiritually as a result of the horrifying experience you've been through? At the time you didn't think you were ever going to survive it. But here you are, survivors. Many years later, you've moved on, you've picked yourself up, you've done great things. But when you look back at it, and as we're talking, I'm sure memories are coming and going too at the same time, isn't it? So you can see you never forget it, right? What have you learned since then? Like, what have you learned? What's been your greatest lesson so far?
I'm grateful to God. I'm grateful to God for everything. I feel like instead of going, why me? I feel like I'm speaking into my spirit, why not me? I'm grateful to go through fires because I know they purify. I'm grateful for pressure because I want to be a multifaceted diamond in the kingdom of God and amongst the kingdom of humanity. I'm grateful to know that I can help others because I've gone through the storm waters. I know how to navigate those waters. I'm more courageous. I'm stronger. I have a lot more wisdom. I find that there's beauty. There's real beauty in scars. I get one life to live. I'm grateful that I was able to live from the extreme highs to the extreme lows and everything in between, because before I take my last breath, I can write my name on the metaphoric tree of life and say, I was here. I lived.
I love that.
I lived. I loved. I want to live life on full, as my dad would say, live life on full and
And
die on
you
empty.
do, Piper.
So
And you do.
I'm glad that it happened to me.
Yeah.
Because now I get to work with other girls and women that are going through violence, abuse, and trauma, and I get to talk to them from a compassionate place in the center of my spirit,
And
not from an intellect, not from a not knowing, but going, here's the scar. It bled out. I may reopen it sometimes with memory, but I understand what it feels like, and I can help you with a salve to mend it. So
yeah,
I'm grateful. Thank you, God, for the journey.
I bet. And in some way that we knew that we couldn't have changed it anyway, like it had to happen. And as much as if the better part of me would say, oh, I would have hated, I just didn't want that to happen, but it did. The power to reconcile, the power to pick up, the power to grow, the power to dig deep inside of the soul and have still belief in God, even though you went through what you went through, and you still goes, I know God was not going to let me suffer. This has got to be something else connected beyond Him that I need to figure out, you know? And I think that's what makes the triumph over the tragedy such an inspiration for those who follow. Angelia, what about you? What have you learned the most? And Santos, check if anybody has any questions. You can put it in the comment field. What was your learning lesson?
It was learning that one of my favorite scriptures is, I can do all things through Christ. So I taught my son that, my daughter that, and then I say that no matter what I'm going through, I know I can do it. I can overcome it. I can defeat it. I can change the trajectory of how it's supposed to end by saying I'm greater than what I'm going through. I, again, choose to live. I make a conscious choice to say that no matter what, there's a positive in every negative. And when I look back, it's because of what I've gone through that now I have the strength to fight the next battle, because I see He brought me out back then. He's going to bring me out again. And that, you know, greater is He that's in me than he that's in the world. So no matter what the world is doing to me, God is in me. I'm going to make it through this. And, you know, the life that I live has to be one of choice. It has to be one that's going to show someone looking just like me or looking at me that if she came out of that, I can too. And
Beautiful.
I tell people, when you tell your story, tell the whole story, because the part you leave out is what's saving someone.
Mm,
Everybody's
That's
going to
right.
tell a piece of the story, but if you don't tell the whole story, they don't know I've lost it all, that I lost my house and I was able to get another one. If I don't tell the story, they don't know I got beat and I was left for dead, and I was running and they didn't know what was going to happen to escape. But I'm still here to tell you that God is still great, that I
yeah.
am still who I'm supposed to be, and that my name means something because I'm a child of the King. But most importantly, I know who I am because of whose I am.
Well,
So
one of
that's
the
it.
things I love that you've been saying, Angelia, is that I'm royalty, and I just
Right.
love that because I love that quality more than anything else. And I wish our young girls would walk around with that attitude that I'm a princess, but that I am royalty. So the way I carry myself matters, but the way you treat me matters. I think
Yes.
that's really important for young women to really recognize the value of who they really are as young women, especially in
Right.
these times. Yeah. So, what would you tell any lady out there right now who might be watching that might be going through a particular tough time, trapped at home? It's COVID. She can't really get out as much. Maybe her kids are also being abused. The kids maybe are at home seeing the abuse, or the kids are getting abused and now schools are closed. So they can't
That's
even
right.
go to the schools just to get that 6 to 8 hour break from the terror at home. What would you
Yes.
tell our sisters that are in this case? And I'm not going to talk about the men that are getting beat up. That's another story.
That's another
I don't
story.
want to talk about that one.
It's not as many
I'm
incidences,
just
but
not going to go there. But what would you tell a woman who is in that position, or a child who is in
I'm
this
working with
position?
those women right now, Dr. Jenna. I have a classroom of 25. The difference with these women is they've all been rescued and they're all minors. But I recognize that the same story that we tell to a 15-year-old that's been sold and bought and beaten and drugged out and thrown in pornography or raped daily by 10 to 20 men, who considers this to be love because she's told by the man who's selling and buying her that he loves her. The commitment that we have to these girls is to remind them that they're not alone, that there's always help. Um, Pride is one of those things that stops us. Like you heard Angelia say, she didn't want to be a failure. We have to recognize that there is no failure in asking for help, that we are a communal people. Community is a part of who we are. Where humanity is tribal. Women come together, whether it's under the real red tent or the metaphoric red tent, that there's always someone out there desiring to help.
Yeah.
You just need to ask. You have to get out there to ask. Take your children, take yourselves, find a safe time and a safe place to gather what you can and get yourself to safety. There is always someone behind a door to help you, whether it's in a grocery store, wherever you can go to get to someone to let them know that you need help. Just at least get to that first point. If you get to that first point, I believe that they will be able to take it from there.
Beautiful.
Police officers are no longer calling husbands and saying, "We have your wife here. What do you think?" That is not how the system is set up anymore. You just get to a place where you can get to a phone, get authorities called, and we have enough systems and locations and safe houses, medical facilities, and shelters set up all over the United States to get you and your child a safe place, warm clothes, food, emotional healing, legal counseling, and everything that you may and definitely will need for the future to
Beautiful.
keep yourself safe. The only
Beautiful.
important thing is to keep yourself safe.
Beautiful. Angelia, any sharings or message that you'd like to offer?
I would tell them to reach out because there is someone who's listening, there is someone who believes you, and there is someone who loves you. And if no one's told you they love you, let me be the first to say I love you tonight. Because too many people hear I love you from the wrong people, and those are the ones that's hurting them. So if we just tell them that you can take back your power, and that's by
That's
saying,
right.
I want to come out, I want to be an overcomer. I'm here to help. Piper's here to help. Sister Jenna's here to help, and there's help. Just go to the right place for the help.
Beautiful. Ladies, you've been incredible, and I thank you so much for the wealth of your wisdom. Santosh, was there anyone that had some questions or thoughts? Everyone is like, wow, like this in the conversation. They're like, wow, they don't know what to say. It was so riveting. Um, Thank you both for the work that you're doing for our young men and young women. Thank you for triumphing and continuing to triumph, because I'm sure there are moments when the past comes back, you know, and it still impacts you, doesn't it? Like,
It does.
it still has a feeling in you, and it touches you in a spiritual way that you can't even discern it anymore because it's quite deep. And perhaps it is your faith and your love in God that keeps you going, and that's been a big blessing for everyone. There's somebody here with one question. So Portia Davidson, who's a retired government employee, wants to ask this question to both of you. Please share with her, how can this issue be stopped for good? Is there any possibility that this could ever happen? I don't know about that one. I mean, I believe it's going to stop at some point, you know, but what are your thoughts?
I actually don't. I don't believe that there will ever be an end to the opposites of anything. Because as Angelia says, I trust that we know there will always be a day and a night. There will always be a cold and a hot, a good and a bad. And it's okay, because knowing that there will be evil in the world also allows us to address the knowledge and knowing that there will be love and good in the world, and compassion and mercy and grace. There's nothing new under the sun. It's part of the human condition. And we don't ever want to believe that putting out fires is the best answer, because we have to trust that God knows where we are and what we go through. If it weren't for some of these fires, we would not have some of the extraordinary spirits that we have in the world. If Nelson Mandela had not been incarcerated for 28 years, would we have had a man with so much compassion he could free 25 million and hold an embrace for an entire world? Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, the Eleanor Roosevelts and Ginsbergs and Mary McLeod Bethunes and Harriet
They go
Tubmans.
on and on and on.
Oftentimes, we walk through these fires.
It's a part of the story, isn't it? It's a part of the story, the victory and defeat, happiness and sorrow. Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't personally think that it'll end, but I think that every person that's going through can make a decision to come out.
That's
And
a great
that means
answer.
that we're paying it
And
for
what
by
you
being
do
there to
with
pull
it.
them out. Yeah, we're paying it for
Right.
by helping pull them out. And a lot of people say pay it forward. I say reach back. Because too many
That's
people
right.
are stuck in the back. Because when we
That's
pay
right.
it forward, that person's already moving. They're already in their destiny. They're already going towards their destiny. But when you reach back, you're pulling someone who's just like you, in that corner like Piper, in that corner like myself, saying, I can't take another punch, stop. But if I reach back to help them and say, sister, let me walk this journey with you, you're not alone, that's when we're going to change.
And that's what you need to feel
That's
like
right.
someone's got your back.
Yes.
Sometimes that's
That's
all you
right.
need. Sometimes that's all you need.
But we can vote. We can change these laws. We can put money into facilities to help women. We can put progressive feminists in the Supreme Court. We can put women in the Senate and in the Congress and in the White House.
And we will.
So
And we will. We have
can
to just,
vote.
we have to
Don't forget
continue.
to vote.
We have to continue to stay consistent and stay vigilant, especially with the current issues. With the COVID crisis going on, where the media is doing so much with COVID, we don't even know half the things that are happening behind the scenes. But we do recommend everyone who's out there, a concerned citizen, if you know of anyone, any woman that's being violated or being hurt, please direct them to the Domestic Violence Hotline. The phone number is 1-800-799-7233. Again, if there's anyone that you know, a child or a mother, that's being violated or abused, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. And I'd love for you to contact these two amazing ladies for more information. And they can leave us with their website and the best way to get in touch with them. Piper, what's the best way to find you?
Well, I want to say to any girls in the California area, or if anyone knows of young girls between the ages of 10 and 17 who are in need of rescue from human trafficking, violence, pornography, sexual trauma, to please reach out so I can relocate you to Hope Refuge. And anyone that needs advocacy or encouragement, I'm here. My website is Dellums, all one word, .com, PIPERDELLUMS.com. And my email is pipereagpipereag@gmail.com. You can always have that with you if you ever need to get a message, if you need help, if you need us to advocate or to locate resources for you. That's why we're here.
Thank you
God
so
bless
much.
you. Stay well and stay safe.
Thank you, Piper. You're such an angel. Angelia?
I can be reached on my website at angeliadunbar.com. That's ANGELIA Dunbar, D as in David, UNBAR.com. If you go on my website, you can also find a place to have free mentoring where I talk to you and you can schedule an appointment for one-on-one with me, and I can help you locate resources to get out. I can help you find a way to overcome and just motivate you and encourage you.
You got
I'd love
it.
to speak to you.
You got a copy of that great book next to you? Can you hold that up?
I do.
It's a great read.
Yes. Slaying with my broken pieces. And it tells you how I overcame everything, lost it all, but faith, never lost faith, and I was able to rebuild my life and my real estate empire.
One of the things that I've taken from these two beautiful women is their faith in God, their faith in themselves, but also they haven't given up on humanity. They're still out there helping them one at a time. And so that's one thing that if you're going to take away anything from tonight's program or conversation, don't you ever give up on Source. Never give up on yourself. And as sometimes dark as some of our brothers and sisters can be, don't give up on humanity either, because we've got each other and we've got. Anyway, thank these two ladies for such a wonderful evening. I hope you guys enjoyed our time together on air today. Was it sweet? It was sweet.
If you saw the birds flying through my garden.
I didn't see the birds flying, but I did hear the chimes going off, and it was gorgeous.
As you were speaking, all of these birds, I built this from scratch.
Let me see your garden. Seed. Look at that. You're so busy. Oh my God. I love it.
Oh, it's hard to show.
I just love California weather. Oh.
I know.
It's just awful.
So that's my sanctuary.
I bet it is.
I think, yes. This has been an extraordinary time. Thank you, beautiful ladies and women.
Me too.
And girls all over. Thank you for all of us coming together. And remember, God is in absolutely everything. The great I am in every breath, in every way. Thank you for the meditation and prayer, for what you do, Sister Jenna.
Thank you.
For recognizing God in every aspect of our being.
Yes.
And for the simple breath of life that keeps us going.
Yes.
So I'm happy that we're breathing in this life together as sisters.
Very grateful to be in the story with you. Put your stuff on mute. I'm going to play a meditation for all the women out there to give them a sense of comfort and calm and a feeling of feeling protected and loved and empowered. Piper Dellums, Angelia Dunbar, thank you so much love, and Om Shanti to all of you. So don't hang up with us yet. Just sit back, enjoy the meditation as I do my closing spiel. Just put your stuff on mute so I don't hear your birds and your chimes going off back there in the background. Anyway, everyone, I'm sure you must have enjoyed our time together. And again, this was really about a show to really support and help any woman out there who is in need, okay? Piper, could you put your phone on mute? Could you put your Zoom on mute? There you go. Thank you everyone for joining in. I'm sure you took a lot of benefit from today's conversation. And again, if this story hasn't inspired you to stay true and to stay strong, I don't know what will. It's a powerful time to be alive. It's a powerful time to basically rise up and stand in your power. There's so many people going through so many hardships. And if you're complaining over little things, please don't. Find gratitude in the little things that you do. It's time for us to rise up. It's time for us to have a deep, intimate connection to God, the one who's the ocean of love, the one who wants to fill me up with peace and power, so I can do my work and I can feel full while I'm on the planet. I want to hold a moment of stillness with you. I know this was a lot as well, because in stillness and in silence, the answers are there. Let's let go of the stories. Let go of the attachment to the names and the roles and the gender. And let's just be with God for tonight and every other night. And can we send our blessings and our good wishes to all the women out there and kids who are living in fear right now, who don't feel very safe? Can we send them our thoughts of protection? That somehow our collective pure feelings and good wishes becomes a protection for them. Take a deep breath, enjoy this meditation, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us. Please stay safe, huh? Om Shanti. The time that we choose to be aware doesn't necessarily require me to just sit and meditate. But even while I walk and move around, I can be in a meditative awareness, which is awareness of the soul, the original, eternal, imperishable being of light. For a little while, I'd like to invite you to be present, to be here, and to be now. Allow your mind to settle in the moment, to relax. This meditation is about awareness. It's about becoming aware of your original and eternal self. It's about connecting to your truth. Let go of your name. And observe yourself feeling nameless. Let go of your gender to discontinue thinking you're a man or a woman. Let it go and observe how you would feel walking around without a gender. Let go of the role that you play and let go of the titles that you own. Observe how you're feeling as you are gradually letting go. Let go of your religion and put it aside just for now. And let go of your nationality and even the language that you're accustomed to. Imagine you have no name, gender, role, title, religion, nationality, or even a language. Ask yourself, how do you feel at this moment? And in this feeling, who would think of you and who would you think of? The Supreme Soul would think of you, and you, the liberated soul, would think of the Supreme. In this state of absolute freedom, I am truly who I am. A free, peaceful, pure, immortal, and eternal soul. Allow yourself to just be absorbed in this awareness. At this time,